Hello and welcome back to another video, and in this one I'm going to be going through a couple of drivers who I think could be in Formula 1 in 2025. And yeah, I'm not necessarily predicting whether they're going to be there, although I probably will mention it. I'm just going through a list of drivers who I think have a respectable chance of being on the grid. So this is not they will be on the grid, it's more, it's not even they should be on the grid, because there's some of these who I don't know. But these drivers, I think, are in with at least a degree of a chance of being on the 2025 grid. We're going to start off with the most recent success, being Ollie Bearman. He, of course, has the experience of having made his Formula 1 debut in Saudi Arabia last week. And he did an unbelievable job for a guy with one FP3 session under his belt, as that being his only experience, to then finish P7, beat Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris, jumping into an F1 car for the first time. Unbelievable performance from Ollie Bearman. And in my opinion, he absolutely has to be in the grid in 2025. I think it's almost 100% he has to be. You'd expect Haas would probably be changing their drive from a guarantee that Nico Hulkenberg is going to go. He's still a very talented driver, but I cannot say for sure that he is going to be there. He might jump ship to Alpine, something like that, if Ocon or Gasly abandon ship. And then Kevin, I think, has a good chance of being let go at the end of the season with Ollie Bearman thrown into Haas. I think Bearman absolutely deserves a chance. 18 years old, I think he is. He'd be, even if Kevin's a better driver now, Ollie's going to give you a lot more time. You know, K-Mag's relatively old. He'll give you 3 years, maybe. Ollie Bearman, he can give you 20. If he retires at 38, he'll give you 20 years. That's the fact. I mean, he won't spend his whole career at Haas if he does get the seat, but he can spend 20 years in the sport. He can give you a long-term future. He's a much better option than Kevin Magnussen. And Haas are kind of Ferrari's junior team. Not quite in the same essence as Racing Bulls with Red Bull, but similar. And I think Ferrari will be pushing to get their junior driver into that seat, because I think Bearman will be Ferrari's long-term replacement for Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. So it'll be Leclerc and Bearman long-term, but obviously we know it's going to be Hamilton-Bearman next season, and I think Bearman deserves a Haas seat next season. Moving on now to Zane Maloney. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know an awful lot about this guy, to be completely honest. But I know for sure he's currently the F2 Championship leader after the first 2 races. He's having a very good start to the season. Fair play to him. He's also the reserve driver at Sauber, and there's a possibility of him getting the 2025 seat, I suppose. If Joe and Bottas both get fired, that could give him space. But to be honest, in contrast to Ollie Bearman, I do think Maloney might have to wait quite a bit longer if he is ever going to get that call up to F1. Because if Sauber have that seat open for 2025, they're going to be thinking long term. Next season, Audi are going to have the team. What are Audi going to do? They're going to want some very good drivers. They could be fast. And if they're fast, they'll obviously, as I say, want the best drivers. And I think if Sauber are going to bring in 2 new drivers in 2025, as much as Zane Maloney's good, I think Théo Pourchaire and Carlos Sainz would be higher on the list. Well, having mentioned Théo Pourchaire, I thought it'd be wise to move on to our next driver, being him. Another driver with very close links to Sauber, as I said. A very, very talented driver with tons of potential. I think absolutely deserves an F1 seat next season. And I think the presence of him and the driver who I'm going to name next are probably going to start to move on the old host of drivers in this sport. Because I could see Théo Pourchaire taking Bottas' seat next season and Bottas being out of the sport. That's very possible. I mean, I like Bottas. I like the next driver I'm going to say might lose his seat looking at things currently. But I think with so many young talents coming through, there's a good chance we could be saying goodbye to those drivers. So yeah, I think Théo Pourchaire absolutely deserves a chance in Formula One next season, and I think it would be a big shock if he wasn't there, personally. So yeah, as I was saying, with the next driver, I have a feeling with how bad Daniel Ricciardo's been, I mean he's not been awful, but he's not been good. We're 2 races in, he might still keep hold of that seat. And I said in my earlier predictions, I think Yuki would be the one getting fired for Lawson. And Ricciardo and Lawson would pair each other in AlphaTauri or Racing Bulls for 2025. Looking at things currently, Yuki will probably be the one to keep that seat, and Ricciardo would be going away if that was. If things were to continue like they are. So yeah, the one I'm referring to, obviously, as I've mentioned, is Liam Lawson. He's an absolute shoo-in for a seat next season. As much I think Behrman is fantastic and deserves a seat so much, Liam is the number one. If he doesn't get a seat, it's an absolute disgrace. He's already proven himself in F1 with AlphaTauri last season, as it was known then. And he performed at a good level compared to the other 3 AlphaTauri drivers last season. Obviously, he outperformed Tsunoda when he raced alongside him. I think he did better than Ricciardo most of the time. I mean, Ricciardo's obviously got more experience, but give Liam a few years, he would probably be at a higher level generally. And De Vries wasn't great at all. To be honest, I feel Liam Lawson was hard done by to not have a 2024 seat, so to refuse him a 2025 seat, in my opinion, would be criminal. I'm 99% certain he will have a drive in F1 for 2025. Right, we're going to move on now to Felipe Drugovich. And can someone explain to me why this guy has not got an F1 seat yet? I don't know. The reason that he hasn't, and I think we all kind of do know, as much as I don't really understand it, I also really do understand it. It's obvious why he's not, because he's the Aston Martin reserve driver. They've got a 2-time world champion in Fernando Alonso, and they're not going to get rid of Lance Stroll. And that would be the seat, Lance Stroll's seat, that Felipe would probably be taking. But we're talking about an F2 champion here. You know, he's currently Aston Martin reserve, as I said, and surely in Formula One somewhere there should be a seat for him. Maybe when Fernando retires he'll take his seat, but I think the only real possibilities for him would be Mercedes family takes him on a bit more and he gets a Williams seat, or Stroll finally leaves Aston Martin, which I see very little chance of happening, to be honest. I said it would happen in my pre-season predictions, and even then I didn't give Drugovich the seat because I thought Sergio Perez would probably fill it in if he gets fired. But to be fair to Perez, he started the season quite well, so he probably might keep that seat at Red Bull, who knows. But yes, it's a very interesting one. I don't think Drugovich's going to get a seat in 2025, but I really think he deserves it, and I think he's been a bit hard done by. He's an F2 world champion, he's been waiting on the wings for a while. He deserves the chance. Moving on now to Jack Doohan, and this poor guy, man. He's the reserve driver at Alpine. If he gets his Formula One debut, he's going to be, if Ocon or Gasly are unable to attend the Grand Prix, he's going to be driving that thing. But I don't know. To be fair, he'll probably be enjoying himself away from F1 as a reserve driver at the moment. But I don't see any chance of him ever going to Formula One, to be honest. I included him as he is a talked about name, but I don't see him getting an F1 seat at Alpine because I think there's better drivers who could fill in that role in the future. I don't think Doohan's the answer. He's a decent driver, and maybe someone would take a punt on him, but I don't think he is the one who deserves an F1 seat out of a lot of these rookies. He's probably the least deserving of one. Maybe give him a few more years, we'll see. But I don't think he's currently at that level. Alpine will improve as the season goes on. Ocon or Gasly, I don't think either of them will truly be trying to force a move out of that team. So, unless Ocon gets the Mercedes seat, then that's completely different. But I think both Alpine drivers, there's a good chance they'll probably stay. And if that happens, then I don't see how Doohan could even be in contention for a seat, to be honest. Right, moving on. I said Lawson was the shoe-in for a seat. I think this guy is one who I think really does deserve one and will probably get one if his F2 debut season goes well. And that is Andrea Kimi Antonelli. I'd say he's probably the hottest prospect in F1 right now. The big talent, the big man. He's only 17 years old. And he's a Mercedes junior driver driving for Prema in F2, the best F2 team. Start of the season a bit shaky, Prema, but they got it back second race. You know, they had Ollie Behrman on pole. And obviously he didn't attend the race because he was driving in F1 that weekend. Fair play to Behrman, as I've said before. But Antonelli, 100%, is what Mercedes are putting their focus on. And I honestly think Kimi Antonelli, from the talent he's shown, he can compete with Oliver Behrman. He can. It is not going to be easy, because Ollie Behrman is one of the big talents in Formula One, but Kimi Antonelli is another amazing talent. And I think there's a chance, albeit slim, he could probably beat Ollie Behrman. Yeah, I don't see any reason, if he does do that, why he wouldn't get a seat at Williams. But honestly, what is truly stopping him from getting the big job at Mercedes next to Russell? Other than, you know, Fernando Alonso or Max Verstappen deciding to take that seat, but I don't think they will. Fernando could. I don't think Max will. But yeah, even if he doesn't beat Ollie Behrman, Ollie's had extra season in F2. And Ollie's got all the experience, even driving in F1 with that race now, and had testing sessions, practice sessions with Haas. So it's not easy, to be completely honest, to beat Ollie Behrman, but I think Kimi will give him a run for his money. And Kimi absolutely deserves an F1 seat next season. Him, Lawson and Behrman all very much deserve seats. Moving on now, because I was thinking those 7 were the big ones, but I kind of remembered about this kid a little late on. He's one of the current Mercedes reserve drivers and showed a lot of promise in his time in F2, which is Frederik Vesti. For a long time, I thought this guy was going to end up in a Williams seat. I thought with Latifi in there, he would be the replacement. They got Sargent. And now I'm thinking they're going to get rid of Sargent, but Kimi Antonelli's there. That makes that very difficult. Maybe if Albon and Sargent both leave, we'll have an Antonelli-Vesti duo at Williams. That would be class, but I don't see much chance of it. I think Vesti will struggle to find an F1 seat now, and I don't see him as being a particularly likely option, but he's not really done anything wrong to deserve not to have an F1 seat. He's a very talented driver, and we'll see whether opportunities do arise for him in the future. So yeah, that was my 8 drivers. Out of them, Behrman absolutely deserves a seat. Maloney, I see limited chance of him getting a seat. Pourchaire absolutely deserves a seat. Lawson absolutely deserves a seat. Drugovic deserves a seat. I don't think he'll get one. Jack Doohan, there's better options. I don't think he'll get a seat. Kimi Antonelli deserves a seat. I think he probably will get one. Frederik Vesti, he deserves a seat to a degree, but I don't think he'll get one for the upcoming season, unfortunately for him. So yeah, that is going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.